Baby heard whimpers from a trash can, found a German shepherd inside. What baby did next left. Everyone in tears. A faint cry echoed through the rain-soaked park. Most people rushed by, eager to escape the evening chill, but not little Tommy. What this 5-year-old boy did when he discovered the source of those cries would change dozens of lives forever. The story you're about to listen will leave you in tears and remind you of the extraordinary power of innocence. Don't forget to like, share, and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Rain pounded against the windows of the small apartment where Tommy lived with his grandmother Rose. The storm had finally broken after 3 days of threatening skies, washing the city streets clean, but leaving behind a bone-chilling dampness that seeped through the old building's walls. "Grammy, can we please go outside now?" The rain stopped. Tommy pressed his small nose against the foggy glass, his breath creating delicate clouds that expanded and contracted with each exhale. Rose looked up from her mending. The needle paused mid-stitch. At 72, her movements had slowed, but her eyes remained sharp, especially when it came to her grandson. Tommy wasn't like other children his age. Where they saw only what was in front of them, Tommy seemed to see beneath surfaces, noticing things that even adults missed. "It's nearly dark, sweetie, and everything will be soaked through." "But Biscuit needs his walk," Tommy said, pointing to the elderly terrier mix curled up on his dog bed. The dog raised his head at the sound of his name, his roomy eyes blinking sleepily. Rose sighed. "Biscuit looks perfectly content to stay dry tonight. He told me he wants to go out." Tommy's face was completely serious. "He says the rain washed away all the old smells, and now everything smells new again." Rose pressed her lips together to hide her smile. Tommy had always insisted he could understand what animals were thinking. Usually she gently corrected him, but tonight she was too tired to argue. 10 minutes, she conceded, setting aside her mending. "And you're wearing your rain boots and jacket." Tommy's face lit up with joy as he raced to get his yellow boots. Rose moved more slowly, her joints protesting as she reached for their coats hanging by the door. She helped Tommy into his bright blue raincoat, zipping it up to his chin while he bounced impatiently. "Settle down now," she said. "Biscuit, you stay here where it's warm and dry." The dog yawned and settled deeper into his bed, clearly having no intention of venturing out into the wet evening. As they stepped outside, the air smelled clean and fresh. The rain had stopped, but water still dripped from trees and gutters, creating musical plinks and plops all around them. Tommy jumped gleefully into a puddle, sending water splashing in all directions. "Tommy, you'll soak yourself through," Rose scolded, but there was no real anger in her voice. They walked toward the small neighborhood park, Tommy skipping ahead and then waiting for his grandmother to catch up. The park was deserted, the playground equipment glistening wet under the streetlights that had just flickered on. "Stay where I can see you," Rose called as Tommy darted toward the swings. She lowered herself carefully onto a damp bench, grimacing at the cold seeping through her coat. Tommy ran from the swings to the slide, trailing his fingers along the wet metal, but not climbing up. Then he froze, his head tilted to one side like a small bird listening for worms. "Grammy," he called, his voice dropping to a whisper that carried in the quiet park. "Do you hear that?" Rose strained to listen, but shook her head. "Just the dripping, dear." "No, someone's crying." Tommy was already moving, following a sound only he could hear. He headed toward the far corner of the park, where a row of dumpsters stood behind the public restrooms. "Tommy, get back here this instant." Rose struggled to her feet, hurrying after him as quickly as her arthritic knees would allow. By the time she caught up, Tommy was standing on tiptoe, peering into one of the large green dumpsters. His small face was scrunched with concern. "There's someone in there, Grammy. They're hurt." "That's impossible," Rose said firmly, taking his hand. "No one would be in there. Come away now." But Tommy pulled free. "Listen," he insisted. And this time, Rose heard it too, a faint, pitiful whimpering coming from inside the dumpster. Her heart jumped into her throat. Was it possible? Had someone abandoned a baby? She'd read about such terrible things in the newspaper. "Stay back," she ordered Tommy, panic rising. "Let me look." But Tommy was already dragging over a plastic crate that had been discarded nearby. He climbed up before Rose could stop him and leaned precariously over the edge of the dumpster. "Oh!" he gasped. "Grammy, come quick! It's a dog!" Rose grabbed Tommy by the waist, terrified he would fall in. "Get down from there right now!" "But we have to help her!" Tommy's eyes were wide with urgency. "She's really hurt, Grammy. She's scared and cold and hungry." Rose helped Tommy down, then cautiously stepped onto the crate herself to look inside. What she saw made her blood run cold. Huddled against a pile of soggy cardboard was a large German shepherd, or what was left of one. The dog was so emaciated that every rib stood out starkly against its dull, matted coat. Its eyes, sunken deep in their sockets, gazed up at her with a hopelessness that squeezed Rose's heart. But what horrified her most were the wounds, raw, bleeding gashes across the animal's face and shoulders, and an embedded collar that had cut so deeply into the skin that it was nearly hidden from view. "Oh, merciful heavens," Rose whispered, stepping back down. "We need to get her out, Grammy." Tommy was already tugging at her sleeve. "She's dying." Rose shook her head, trying to think practically. "Tommy, we can't. That dog is very sick and hurt. It needs a vet, not us, and it might be dangerous." "She's not dangerous," Tommy's voice rose shrilly. "She's scared. She needs help right now." Tears welled in his eyes. "Please, Grammy, please." Rose felt torn. The dog clearly needed help, but they had barely enough money for their own food, let alone expensive vet bills. And how would they even get a large, injured dog back to their apartment? "We should call animal control," she said finally. "They have people who know how to help sick animals." Tommy's face crumpled. "They'll put her to sleep, she told me." "Animals don't talk, Tommy," Rose said gently. "Not with words." Tommy's chin jutted out stubbornly. "But they tell you things if you listen, and she said she's been trying so hard to stay alive. She wants to live, Grammy." Rose sighed, feeling the familiar weight of responsibility. Being a parent to a child at her age was hard enough. She didn't need another mouth to feed, especially one with 4 legs and who knew what health problems. "We don't even know how to get her out," she said, a last attempt at practicality. "I'll figure it out." Tommy's determined expression reminded Rose painfully of his mother, her daughter, who had died 3 years ago, leaving Rose to raise Tommy alone. Just then, the dog let out another whimper, more feeble than before. Something in that sound broke through Rose's hesitation. "All right," she said, already wondering if she'd regret this. "But we need help. That dog is too big for me to lift, and I don't want you climbing in there." As if in answer to her words, a man appeared from around the corner of the restrooms, startling them both. He was tall, with broad shoulders, wearing a baseball cap pulled low over his eyes. Rose instinctively pulled Tommy behind her. "Hello there," she said cautiously. The man stopped, raising his hand slightly as if to show he meant no harm. "Sorry, didn't mean to scare you. I was just using the facilities." His voice was deep but gentle. "Everything okay?" Rose hesitated, but Tommy didn't. "There's a hurt dog in the dumpster, and we need to get her out," he blurted. The man's eyebrows rose. "A dog? In there?" He stepped closer, looking concerned rather than threatening. "She's really hurt," Tommy added, his voice trembling with emotion. "And Grammy says she's too heavy for us to lift." The man approached the dumpster and peered in. His sharp intake of breath told Rose he'd seen the dog's condition. "Jesus," he muttered, then quickly glanced at Tommy. Wow, that's bad." He turned to Rose. "Do you have a car? This animal needs a vet right away." "We were going to take her home first," Tommy said before Rose could answer. "We don't have a car." The man seemed to make a decision. "I'm Daniel," he said, extending his hand to Rose. "I live in the blue apartment building just across from the park. I have a truck, and my sister is a vet tech. Maybe I can help?" Rose shook his hand hesitantly. "I'm Rose, and this is my grandson Tommy. We appreciate the offer, but we couldn't impose—" "It's no imposition," Daniel interrupted gently. "I couldn't walk away knowing that animal is suffering." While they spoke, the dog's whimpers had grown quieter, which seemed to alarm Daniel. "We need to act fast. That dog doesn't have much time from the looks of it." Tommy tugged urgently at his grandmother's coat. "Please, Grammy, Daniel can help us." Rose looked from her grandson's pleading face to Daniel's concerned one, then back to the dumpster where the wounded animal lay dying. Her practical nature warred with her compassion. "All right," she finally said, "but the dog comes to our place. I don't want Tommy going off with someone we just met, even to help an animal." Daniel nodded, understanding her caution. "That makes sense. Let me see if I can get her out." He removed his jacket, rolled up his sleeves, and climbed carefully into the dumpster. Rose and Tommy watched anxiously as he spoke in low, soothing tones to the injured animal. "Hey there, girl. Easy now. We're going to help you, okay? Easy." The dog growled weakly, trying to bare its teeth despite its weakness. "She's scared," Tommy called out. "Tell her you won't hurt her." Daniel glanced at the boy with surprise, but did as suggested. "I'm not gonna hurt you, girl. We're here to help. That's right, easy now." To Rose's amazement, the dog stopped growling, though its body remained tense. Daniel moved slowly, finally managing to slide his arms beneath the animal's body. The dog yelped in pain when he lifted her, causing Tommy to cry out in distress. "I'm sorry, girl," Daniel murmured. "I know it hurts." With great care, he passed the dog up and over the edge of the dumpster to Rose, who nearly buckled under the unexpected weight. Despite its emaciated condition, the dog was still a large animal. "Tommy, step back," she ordered, struggling to hold the trembling creature. But Tommy moved closer instead, reaching out to gently stroke the dog's filthy head. "It's okay," he whispered. "You're safe now. Nobody's gonna hurt you ever again." The dog's eyes, glazed with pain and fear, seemed to focus on Tommy's face. Then, to Rose's astonishment, the animal stopped struggling and relaxed slightly in her arms. Daniel climbed out of the dumpster, his clothes now dirty and wet. "Let me take her," he offered, carefully lifting the dog from Rose's arms. "Where do you live?" "The Pine Heights Apartments, just 2 blocks over," Rose said, still stunned by how the dog had responded to Tommy. They made their way slowly out of the park, Tommy walking alongside Daniel, his eyes never leaving the injured animal. Rose followed, her mind racing with worries about what they were getting themselves into. The dog's breathing grew more labored as they walked, each breath ending in a small whine of pain that tore at Rose's heart. What had happened to this poor creature? Who could be so cruel? By the time they reached the apartment building, Rose was panting from the exertion of keeping up. She fumbled with her keys at the entrance, then led the way up 2 flights of stairs to their small apartment. "You can put her on those blankets," she said, pointing to a stack of old blankets she used for when the laundry machine in the basement was broken. Daniel gently laid the dog down, and immediately Tommy was beside the animal, stroking its head and whispering words too soft for the adults to hear. Biscuit, their elderly terrier, approached cautiously, sniffing the air but keeping his distance. "I've never seen anything like this," Daniel said quietly to Rose. "Those wounds. This dog has been through hell." Rose nodded grimly. "What do we do now?" "My sister Jenny finishes her shift at the animal hospital in 20 minutes. I'll call her." Daniel pulled out his phone and stepped into the hallway to make the call. Left alone with Tommy and the injured dog, Rose felt a wave of uncertainty wash over her. The animal's condition was worse than she'd initially realized. Its breathing was shallow, and blood was seeping through the matted fur onto her blankets. "Grammy, she needs water," Tommy said, looking up with tear-filled eyes. Rose hurried to fill a bowl, wondering if the dog would even be able to drink. When she returned, Tommy took it from her hands and held it to the dog's muzzle, supporting her head with his other small hand. "Drink a little," he encouraged. "Just a little bit." To Rose's surprise, the dog lapped weakly at the water, just a few drops, before letting her head sink back down. "Good girl," Tommy whispered. "You're so brave." Daniel returned, his face serious. "Jenny's coming straight here after her shift. She's bringing some supplies." He knelt beside the dog, carefully examining the embedded collar. "This needs to come off, but we should wait for Jenny. Removing it improperly could cause more damage." Rose nodded, then hesitated. "I should tell you, we don't have much money. I'm not sure we can afford." Daniel waved away her concerns. "Let's just focus on helping her right now. We can figure out the rest later." Tommy hadn't moved from the dog's side, his small hand gently stroking her ear. "She says thank you," he said suddenly. Daniel looked at the boy with curiosity. "She told you that?" Tommy nodded seriously. "Not with words, but I can tell what she's thinking." Instead of dismissing Tommy's claim as childish imagination, Daniel studied the boy thoughtfully. "What else does she say?" "She's been hurt for a long time. Bad people made her fight other dogs. She didn't want to, but they hurt her when she wouldn't." Tommy's voice dropped even lower. "And she's going to have babies." Rose and Daniel exchanged startled glances. "Babies?" Rose repeated. "Tommy, how could you possibly know that?" Tommy shrugged. "She told me. She's scared her babies will die because she's so sick." His bottom lip trembled. "We can't let that happen, Grammy. We just can't." Daniel gently moved closer to the dog, examining her belly. The animal tensed but didn't growl at him. "I'm no expert," he said slowly, "but her abdomen does look swollen despite how thin she is everywhere else. It's possible she's pregnant." The realization made the situation even more dire. Rose sank onto the edge of the sofa, feeling overwhelmed. Not just one sick animal, but potentially a litter of puppies, too. A knock at the door announced Jenny's arrival. Daniel let his sister in, a petite woman with the same kind eyes as her brother, carrying a large medical bag. "Oh my," she breathed, seeing the dog. "This is bad." She moved efficiently, setting out supplies and pulling on latex gloves. "I'm going to need to sedate her lightly to remove that collar and clean these wounds. Has she been aggressive at all?" "Only a little growling when we first approached," Daniel answered. "The boy seems to have a way with her." Jenny smiled at Tommy. "What's your name, buddy?" "Tommy," he answered, still stroking the dog. "Are you going to make her better?" "I'm going to try my very best," Jenny promised. "What's her name?" Tommy looked thoughtful. "She doesn't have one yet. The bad people never gave her a nice name, just mean ones." He leaned close to the dog's ear, whispering something, then looked up. "I think we should call her Miracle." "Miracle?" Rose repeated. Tommy nodded firmly. "Because it's a miracle we found her, and it'll be a miracle if she gets better. But she will. I know she will." Jenny prepared a syringe while explaining to Tommy what she was doing. "This will help Miracle feel less pain while I take care of her wounds. She'll get sleepy, but that's okay." The dog flinched slightly when the needle went in, but otherwise remained still, her eyes locked on Tommy's face, as if drawing strength from the boy's presence. As the sedative took effect, Jenny carefully began examining the collar. "This has been on for months, maybe longer," she said grimly. "The skin has grown around it in places." Rose felt sick at the thought. How could anyone do this to an animal? Jenny shook her head, focusing on her work. Some people don't see animals as living beings with feelings. She looked at the wounds on the dog's face and body. These are fighting wounds. She was probably used as a bait dog. "What's a bait dog?" Tommy asked, his eyes never leaving Miracle's face. The adults exchanged uncomfortable glances. "It's when bad people use one dog to train other dogs to fight," Daniel explained carefully. "The bait dog isn't supposed to fight back." Tommy's face crumpled. "That's why she's so sad inside. She never wanted to hurt anyone, but they made her." As Jenny worked to carefully cut away the embedded collar, she confirmed Tommy's earlier statement. "You were right, buddy. She is pregnant. Probably about 6 weeks along, I'd guess." "How many babies?" Tommy asked. Jenny gently palpated the dog's abdomen. "Hard to say for sure, but I feel at least 5 or 6. The news hung in the air. Rose tried to imagine how they would manage not just one sick dog, but half a dozen puppies as well. It seemed impossible. "Can the puppies be saved?" she asked quietly. Jenny's expression was guarded. "If we can get her stabilized and improve her nutrition, there's a chance. But she's severely malnourished and fighting infection from these wounds. The next 48 hours will be critical." As Jenny cleaned and treated the wounds, Miracle remained still, occasionally whimpering, but mostly silent. Tommy never left her side, whispering encouragement and gently holding her paw. "You're being so brave," Rose overheard him saying. "Just a little bit longer, and the pain will start going away." Finally, Jenny sat back on her heels. "That's the best I can do for now. The collar's off, wounds are cleaned and dressed, and I've given her antibiotics and fluids." She looked at Rose. "She needs to see a veterinarian as soon as possible. I've done emergency care, but she needs proper treatment." Rose nodded, pushing aside her financial worries for the moment. "We'll take her first thing tomorrow." Jenny packed up her supplies, leaving behind painkillers, antibiotics, and special food. "Try to get her to eat a little tonight, but don't force it. Keep her warm and comfortable." As Daniel and Jenny prepared to leave, Tommy finally looked up from Miracle's side. "Thank you for helping her," he said solemnly. Jenny knelt down to his level. "You're the real hero, Tommy. You heard her when no one else did. Not many adults would have been so brave or kind." Tommy shook his head. "I just listened. Anyone can do that." Daniel ruffled the boy's hair. "Not everyone listens the way you do, buddy." After they left, promising to check back the next day, Rose settled Tommy and Miracle for the night. The dog had been moved to a clean pile of blankets near the heater, and Tommy had insisted on making a bed for himself right beside her. "You need to sleep in your own bed, sweetheart," Rose said, though without much conviction. "I can't, Grammy. Miracle is scared of the dark, and she might need water in the night." Tommy's face was set with the same determination she'd seen earlier. "I promised her I'd stay." Rose knew when she was beaten. She brought Tommy his pillow and comforter, helping him make a nest next to the injured dog. Biscuit, not to be left out, settled on Tommy's other side with a contented sigh. "Just for tonight," Rose said, kissing Tommy's forehead. "Tomorrow we figure out a better arrangement." As she turned out the lights, leaving only a small lamp burning in the corner, she heard Tommy's voice, soft and sure. "See, Miracle, I told you we'd help you, and tomorrow will be even better. Your babies are going to be okay too. I promise." Rose paused in the doorway, watching her grandson gently stroke the dog's head. The animal's eyes were closed now, her breathing slightly easier than before, though still labored. Tommy's small hand looked impossibly delicate against the scarred muzzle of the German Shepherd. For all her practical concerns, the money, the space, the responsibility, Rose couldn't help feeling that something important had happened today. Something that went beyond rescuing a stray dog. In Tommy's compassion, in his insistence that they help this suffering creature, she saw hope. Hope that the world might not be as cruel and indifferent as it sometimes seemed. "Grammy?" Tommy called softly from his nest of blankets. "Yes, sweetheart." "Miracle wants to know if she can stay with us forever." Rose felt her throat tighten. "We'll see, Tommy. Let's just focus on getting her well first." "She already feels better," Tommy said, his voice growing sleepy. "She says her heart doesn't hurt as much now." Rose closed the door quietly, tears pricking at her eyes. She'd raised Tommy to be kind, but this level of empathy, this connection with a suffering animal, it went beyond anything she had taught him. It was as if he possessed some innate understanding that most people, even most adults, lacked. As she prepared for bed herself, Rose found herself thinking about what Jenny had said about the next 48 hours being critical. Would Miracle survive the night? And if she did, how would they afford the veterinary care she and her unborn puppies would need? Problems for tomorrow, she decided as she climbed into bed. Tonight, she would simply be grateful that they had found the dog in time, that Daniel and Jenny had been there to help, and that Tommy's compassionate heart remained untouched by the cruelty that had so damaged Miracle. Just before she drifted off to sleep, Rose heard Tommy's voice again, so faint she almost missed it. "You're not alone anymore, Miracle, and soon your babies won't be alone either. We're family now." Family. The word echoed in Rose's mind as sleep claimed her. Their small family of 2, plus elderly Biscuit, had suddenly expanded to include a broken German Shepherd and her unborn puppies. It should have felt overwhelming. Instead, strangely, it felt right. Rose woke with a start, momentarily disoriented in the pre-dawn darkness. A sound had pulled her from sleep, a whimpering that wasn't quite human but filled with unmistakable pain. Then she remembered. Miracle. She threw back the covers and hurried to the living room, her heart racing. The small lamp they'd left on cast a warm glow over the makeshift bed where Tommy and Miracle lay. For a moment, Rose froze in the doorway, a hand flying to her mouth. Tommy was curled against Miracle's side, his small arm draped over her neck, his face peaceful in sleep. But the dog was awake, her amber eyes reflecting the lamplight, her body trembling with pain or fear or both. The whimpering Rose had heard came from deep in the animal's throat, a sound of suffering she was trying to suppress. "Oh, you poor thing," Rose whispered, kneeling beside them. She reached out slowly, letting Miracle sniff her hand before gently touching her head. "You're in pain, aren't you?" Miracle's tail thumped weakly against the blankets, just once, but enough to make Rose's eyes sting with unexpected tears. Despite everything this animal had endured at human hands, she was still responding to kindness with trust. Tommy stirred, his eyes fluttering open. "Grammy?" he murmured sleepily. "Is it morning?" "Not quite yet, sweetheart. Go back to sleep." But Tommy was already sitting up, instantly alert as he looked at Miracle. "She needs her medicine. She's hurting bad." Rose checked her watch, 4:30 a.m. "You're right. It's time for her pain medication." She retrieved the pills Jenny had left, carefully crushing one and mixing it with a small amount of the soft food. Tommy watched anxiously as she brought it to Miracle. "She might not want to eat," he said, his forehead creased with worry. "Her throat hurts from where the collar was." Rose hesitated, unsure how to proceed, but Tommy took the small dish from her hands. "Let me try." With infinite gentleness, Tommy scooped a tiny amount of the medicated food onto his finger. "Just a little bit, Miracle," he coaxed, bringing it to her muzzle. "This will make the hurt go away." To Rose's amazement, Miracle's tongue crept out and licked Tommy's finger clean. Encouraged, Tommy continued, one small taste at a time, until the food was gone. "Good girl," he whispered, stroking her ears. "The medicine will start working soon." Rose watched in wonder. Tommy had always been a sensitive child, but this connection with Miracle went beyond anything she'd seen before. It was as if they communicated on some level that bypassed ordinary understanding. "Tommy, how did you know her throat was hurting her?" she asked quietly. The boy shrugged. "She told me, not with words, but—" He frowned, struggling to explain. "I can feel what she feels, sort of, inside my head." Before Rose could respond, Miracle let out a small whine and shifted position, her movements stiff and pained. Tommy immediately placed his hand on her side, his face serious. "The puppies are moving," he announced. "They're restless because she's not eating enough." Rose felt a chill run down her spine. How could he possibly know such a thing? She was about to question him further when her phone rang, startling them all. She hurried to answer it, surprised to see Jenny's name on the screen. "Jenny, is everything all right?" "I'm so sorry to call this early." Jenny's voice was tense with worry. "I couldn't sleep thinking about Miracle. How is she doing?" "She's in pain, but Tommy just got her to take the medication. We were going to bring her to the vet as soon as they open." "That's why I'm calling. I spoke with Dr. Nathan last night. He's the vet I work with. He's agreed to see Miracle first thing this morning, at 7 o'clock, before regular hours." She paused. "He's doing it as a favor to me, and he'll work with you on the cost." Relief flooded through Rose. "Jenny, that's so kind. We can't thank you enough. Daniel will pick you up at 6:30, if that works. He's already awake anyway." After ending the call, Rose turned back to Tommy, who was watching her with hopeful eyes. "Was that about Miracle?" he asked. "Yes, sweetheart. A doctor is going to see her very soon. We need to get ready." Tommy's face lit up. "See, Miracle? I told you Grammy would find someone to help you." The next few hours passed in a blur. Getting Miracle into Daniel's truck proved challenging. She was too weak to walk and whimpered in pain when moved, each sound cutting through Rose's heart like a knife. Tommy insisted on riding in the back seat with the dog, speaking softly to her the entire journey. Dr. Nathan's clinic was quiet when they arrived, the waiting room empty except for a young woman at the reception desk, who directed them immediately to an examination room. The veterinarian himself appeared moments later, a tall man with silver-streaked hair and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. "This must be Miracle," he said, approaching slowly. "Jenny told me what happened. May I?" he asked Tommy, who hadn't left the dog's side. Tommy nodded solemnly. "She's scared, but she knows you want to help." Dr. Nathan's eyebrows rose slightly, but he said nothing as he began his examination. His face grew increasingly grave as he assessed Miracle's condition, particularly when he performed an ultrasound on her abdomen. "I count 6 puppies," he announced finally. "They appear to be developing normally, which is remarkable given the mother's condition." "Will they be okay?" Tommy asked anxiously. Dr. Nathan considered the boy thoughtfully before answering. "It's going to be touch and go, young man. Your dog—" "Miracle," Tommy corrected. "Miracle," Dr. Nathan acknowledged with a small smile, "is severely malnourished and fighting multiple infections. The wounds where the collar was embedded are particularly concerning, and she's weak from blood loss." Rose felt her heart sink. "Are you saying she might not make it?" Dr. Nathan's expression softened. "I'm saying she needs intensive care. Fluids, antibiotics, proper nutrition, wound management, and close monitoring of the pregnancy." He hesitated. "The most humane option might be—" "No," Tommy interrupted, his voice suddenly firm. "You can't put her to sleep. She wants to live. She wants her babies to live." "Tommy," Rose began, but Dr. Nathan held up a hand. "What makes you so sure, Tommy?" he asked, not unkindly. Tommy met the veterinarian's gaze without wavering. "Because she told me, and because she survived this long for a reason. Bad people tried to make her mean and hurt her when she wouldn't fight. They tried to break her, but they couldn't. Now she just wants a chance." An odd expression crossed Dr. Nathan's face, something between surprise and recognition. He studied Tommy for a long moment, then nodded. "All right then, we'll give her that chance." He turned to Rose. "It won't be easy, and I can't make any promises." "We understand," Rose said. "And about the cost." Dr. Nathan waved dismissively. "Jenny explained your situation. Let's focus on getting Miracle stable first. We can work out a payment plan later." He outlined the treatment plan. Miracle would need to stay at the clinic for at least 3 days for intensive care. After that, she would require ongoing treatment at home, with frequent checkups to monitor the pregnancy. The puppies are due in about 3 to 4 weeks, he explained. Between now and then, we need to improve Miracle's health dramatically if they're to have a chance. As they prepared to leave Miracle at the clinic, Tommy knelt beside her, whispering in her ear. Rose couldn't hear what he said, but she saw the dog's tail thump weakly in response. "She'll be okay here?" Tommy asked Dr. Nathan. "We'll take very good care of her," the veterinarian promised. "You can visit tomorrow, and I'll call your grandmother with updates." In the truck on the way home, Tommy was uncharacteristically quiet, his small face troubled. "Miracle will get the best care at the clinic," Rose assured him, reaching back to squeeze his hand. Tommy nodded, but his eyes remained distant. "She was so scared when we left. She thinks we might not come back." Daniel glanced at the boy in the rearview mirror. "You really understand her, don't you?" "I always could," Tommy said simply. "With all animals, but especially with Miracle. It's like we were supposed to find each other." Rose and Daniel exchanged looks, but neither commented further. When they reached the apartment, Daniel insisted on carrying the boy up the stairs, seeing how exhausted he was after the sleepless night. "You should try to rest," Rose told Tommy after Daniel left. "You've been up most of the night." But Tommy shook his head. "We need to make a place for Miracle and her puppies. She'll need somewhere safe and warm." Despite his fatigue, Tommy spent the morning helping Rose rearrange furniture to create a corner in the living room, just for Miracle. They lined a large cardboard box with soft blankets for the puppies, positioning it near the heater but not too close. "See, Grammy, when she comes home, she'll know we were waiting for her, that we didn't forget." Rose's heart ached at his words. Tommy had lost so much in his young life, his mother, his home, his sense of security. Yet here he was, pouring all his love and hope into a broken dog that most people would have walked past without a second glance. The phone rang shortly after lunch, startling them both. It was Dr. Nathan. "I wanted to give you an update," he said, his voice carefully neutral. "Miracle is stable, but her condition is still critical. The next 24 hours will tell us a lot." "Can I talk to her?" Tommy asked, having pressed his ear next to Rose's to hear. There was a pause. Then Dr. Nathan's voice softened. "That's an unusual request, but yes, let me take the phone to her." Rose heard movement, then the faint sounds of a clinical environment. "I've put you on speaker in Miracle's kennel," Dr. Nathan said. "She's awake but very groggy from the medication." "Miracle?" Tommy's voice trembled slightly. "It's me, Tommy. Grammy and I are getting everything ready for when you come home. There's a special box for your puppies, and we put it right where it's warm but not too hot." His words tumbled out faster now. "You don't need to be scared. The doctor is helping you, and then you're coming home with us. I promise we won't leave you." Rose felt tears spring to her eyes as Tommy continued talking to the dog, describing their preparations in detail, reassuring her that they were waiting. Finally, Dr. Nathan came back on the line. "That was remarkable," he said, his professional detachment slipping. "She was quite agitated before, but she's calmer now. Her heart rate has actually improved." He cleared his throat. "You have a very special grandson, Mrs. Wilson." "Rose, please." "And yes, I know he is." After hanging up, Rose found Tommy sitting on the floor beside Biscuit, his small hands stroking the old terrier's fur. "Biscuit says he'll help take care of the puppies," Tommy announced. "He's never had puppies of his own, so he thinks it will be nice." Rose smiled, playing along. "That's very kind of him." Tommy looked up at her, his expression suddenly serious. "You don't believe me, do you, about understanding what animals say?" The directness of the question caught Rose off guard. "I believe that you believe it, sweetheart, and that's what matters." Tommy shook his head. "Dr. Nathan believes me. He has a special dog, too, a black and white one that helps sick animals feel better just by sitting with them. The dog's name is Oreo, and he's 10 years old, and his left ear always flops over even though border collies usually have straight-up ears." Rose stared at her grandson. "Tommy, how could you possibly know that?" "Miracle told me. Dr. Nathan was telling her about Oreo to make her feel better, and she remembered to tell me." Tommy's eyes were wide and earnest. "I'm not making it up, Grammy." A chill ran down Rose's spine. There was no way Tommy could know such specific details about the veterinarian's dog, unless what he claimed was somehow true. Before she could respond, there was a knock at the door. It was Daniel, carrying several bags. Jenny sent some supplies, he explained, as Rose invited him in. Food, medications, puppy formula just in case, some clean blankets and a few toys. Tommy's face lit up as Daniel unpacked the items, especially when he pulled out a soft plush toy in the shape of a lamb. This is perfect. Miracle loves soft things. The bad people never gave her anything soft. Daniel looked at the boy curiously. You seem to know a lot about Miracle. Tommy nodded. She tells me things, not with words, but I can understand. Instead of dismissing this as childish fantasy, Daniel crouched down to Tommy's level. What kind of things does she tell you? Tommy's expression darkened. Bad things that happened to her. She was taken from her mother too early by men who wanted to make her mean. They kept her in a small cage and hurt her when she wouldn't fight other dogs. They called her Bait instead of giving her a real name. His voice dropped to a whisper. She tried to be good, but it was never enough. They always hurt her anyway. Rose felt sick listening to these details, wondering how Tommy could have invented such a specific and horrific backstory. Daniel looked equally disturbed. Does she tell you anything else? About where they kept her? Or who they were? Tommy's forehead creased in concentration. There was a red door, and she could smell gasoline and cigarettes all the time. The men called one person boss, and he had shiny shoes that clicked on the concrete floor. Daniel and Rose exchanged alarmed glances. Tommy, how do you know these things? Daniel asked carefully. The boy looked confused by the question. I told you. Miracle shows me pictures in my head sometimes. And feelings. What kind of pictures? Rose asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Scary ones, mostly, but I told her she can show me and I won't be scared because she needs someone to know. Tommy looked between the adults, suddenly uncertain. Do you think I'm making it up? Daniel shook his head slowly. No, Tommy, I don't think you're making it up at all. After Daniel left, promising to return the next day to take them to visit Miracle, Rose sat Tommy down for a serious conversation. Sweetheart, these things you know about Miracle and other animals, it's not something most people can do. Tommy nodded. I know. Mom used to say I had a gift, but she told me not to talk about it too much because some people wouldn't understand. The mention of his mother sent a pang through Rose's heart. Her daughter had never mentioned Tommy's unusual connection with animals, but then again, they'd grown apart in the years before her death, a rift Rose regretted every day. Your mother was right that it's special, she said carefully. But I think Dr. Nathan and Daniel might understand. They seem to believe you.
Miracle says more people understand animals than you think. They just forget how when they grow up. Tommy's innocent explanation held a wisdom that left Rose momentarily speechless.
The next few days fell into a rhythm centered around Miracle's recovery. Each morning, Daniel would drive them to the clinic where Tommy would spend hours sitting beside the German Shepherd's kennel, talking to her, and sometimes just reading books aloud while she rested. Dr. Nathan had given special permission for these extended visits, noting with amazement how Miracle's vital signs improved whenever Tommy was present. By the third day, Miracle was strong enough to lift her head when they arrived, her tail thumping weakly against the blankets. The severe wounds around her neck were beginning to heal, though the fur would never grow back completely, leaving a permanent ring of scar tissue as a reminder of her ordeal. She's making remarkable progress, Dr. Nathan told Rose as they watched Tommy gently feed Miracle by hand. Medically speaking, I wouldn't have given her more than a 50% chance of survival when you brought her in. Now, I'd say her odds are considerably better. Because of your care, Rose said gratefully. Dr. Nathan shook his head, his eyes on Tommy. Not just that. There's something about your grandson, a healing presence. I've seen animals respond to certain people before, but never quite like this. He hesitated. Has Tommy always had this connection with animals? Rose nodded slowly. Apparently, his mother, my daughter, called it a gift. I thought it was just a child's imagination, but now you're not so sure, Dr. Nathan finished for her. I don't claim to understand it, but I've been a veterinarian for 30 years, and I have learned to trust what I observe. What I observe is that your grandson has an extraordinary empathy that somehow transcends normal communication barriers. Whatever it is, it's helping Miracle heal. On the 5th day, Dr. Nathan announced that Miracle could go home. She'll need careful monitoring and treatment, but she's stable enough now, and frankly, I think she'll recover faster in a home environment with Tommy than here in the clinic. Getting Miracle settled at home was a challenge. She was still too weak to walk more than a few steps, requiring Rose and Daniel to carry her up the stairs to the apartment. But once inside, the dog visibly relaxed, allowing Tommy to guide her to the bed they'd prepared. "See, Miracle? Just like I told you, this is your special place, and here's where your puppies will sleep when they come." Tommy showed her the box they had prepared, lined with soft blankets. "And Biscuit is here too. He says welcome home." The elderly terrier approached cautiously, sniffed Miracle's muzzle, then settled nearby with a contented sigh, as if he'd been expecting her all along. What happened next took the world by shock. Have you ever witnessed a special connection between a child and an animal? Share your stories below. The days that followed were filled with small victories. Miracle began eating more regularly, her strength returning bit by bit. Tommy spent every moment he could by her side, talking to her, brushing her coat where it wasn't wounded, and reading stories aloud. Rose marveled at his dedication. He was only 5, yet he showed a patience and compassion that many adults lacked. Dr. Nathan visited every other day to check on Miracle's progress and monitor the pregnancy. "The puppies are developing well," he announced after one examination. "That's a very good sign. Miracle's body isn't sacrificing them to save herself, which can happen in severe cases of malnutrition." "She wouldn't let her babies die," Tommy said confidently. "That's why she fought so hard to stay alive." One evening, about a week after Miracle had come home, Tommy suddenly froze while feeding her, his small face becoming serious. "Grammy, someone's watching our building." Rose looked up from her mending, startled by the certainty in his voice. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" "Miracle can feel them. Bad people." Tommy's eyes were wide with worry. "They're looking for her." A chill ran down Rose's spine. "Tommy, how would anyone know Miracle is here?" "She says they have ways of finding dogs. They put something in her ear." Tommy gently touched Miracle's left ear, where a small healed incision was visible. "It's not there anymore because the doctors took it out, but they know she's somewhere in this area." Rose wanted to dismiss these fears as a child's imagination, but the specificity of Tommy's claim unsettled her. She went to the window and carefully peeked out from behind the curtain. The street below was mostly empty in the early evening light, but a car was parked directly across from their building, a dark sedan with tinted windows. As she watched, a man emerged from the driver's side, lighting a cigarette. There was nothing overtly threatening about him, yet something in his posture, the way his gaze swept methodically over the buildings, sent a wave of unease through her. She stepped back from the window, her heart racing. It could be nothing, a coincidence, a delivery driver taking a break, anyone. But what if Tommy was right? "I'm going to call Daniel," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. Daniel arrived 20 minutes later with Jenny. Rose had explained Tommy's concerns over the phone, feeling slightly foolish but unwilling to ignore the warning. "The car is gone now," she said as they entered the apartment, "but Tommy is convinced someone is looking for Miracle." Daniel's expression was grave. "He might be right. Jenny, show them what you found." Jenny pulled out her phone and showed Rose a post from a local community forum. "Reward offered, German Shepherd female, answers to bait, last seen near Riverside Park, valuable breeding dog, contact Victor." "That can't be a coincidence," Daniel said quietly. "Riverside Park is right where you found Miracle, and bait." "That's what the bad men called her instead of a real name," Tommy said, still sitting beside Miracle, who had grown noticeably tense since Daniel and Jenny arrived. Jenny nodded. "And there's more. I showed Dr. Nathan this post, and he recognized the phone number. It belongs to Victor Crane, who has been investigated multiple times for suspected involvement in dogfighting rings, but they've never had enough evidence to charge him." "He's the boss," Tommy whispered, "the one with the shiny shoes that click." Rose felt sick. So these people are actually looking for Miracle? Why? She's just one dog and she's in no condition to fight. "It's not about her," Daniel explained grimly. "It's about the puppies. German Shepherd puppies from fighting bloodlines can sell for thousands of dollars each on the black market. If Miracle was their bait dog, her puppies were likely already promised to buyers." Jenny crouched beside Tommy and Miracle. "We need to talk to the police. These people are dangerous, and if they're looking for Miracle, they'll hurt her babies," Tommy finished, his voice small but determined. "We can't let them." Rose made the call, and within the hour, Officer Patrick Wilson arrived at their apartment. He was a solidly built man with kind eyes that crinkled at the corners when he smiled at Tommy. "So, you're the young man who rescued this dog," he said, kneeling to get a better look at Miracle. That was a brave thing to do. Tommy nodded seriously. She needed help, but now the bad people want her back. Officer Wilson's expression grew serious as Daniel and Jenny explained the situation, showing him the online post and sharing their concerns about Victor Crane. "We've been trying to build a case against Crane for years," Officer Wilson confirmed. "But he's careful, and dogfighting operations are notoriously difficult to infiltrate." He looked thoughtfully at Miracle. "This dog could actually be important evidence, if what you're saying about her being used as a bait dog is true." "It's true," Tommy said with absolute certainty. "She remembers everything they did to her." Officer Wilson studied the boy curiously, but didn't question his assertion. Instead, he addressed Rose. "I'm concerned for your safety if Crane suspects you have his dog. These operations involve serious money, and the people who run them don't hesitate to use intimidation." "What should we do?" Rose asked, fear settling in her stomach like a cold stone. "For now, be vigilant. Keep your doors locked, don't let the dog outside where she could be seen, and report any suspicious activity immediately." He handed Rose his card. "Call me directly, day or night, if anything concerns you." After Officer Wilson left, promising to increase patrols in the area, a heavy silence fell over the apartment. Miracle sensed the tension, pressing closer to Tommy's side. "We'll be okay," Tommy told her, stroking her head. "Officer Wilson is going to help us." But that night, after Tommy had finally fallen asleep, Rose sat alone in the kitchen, worry keeping her from rest. The thought of dangerous men searching for Miracle, potentially willing to harm her family to get to the dog, was terrifying. For a brief, shameful moment, she considered whether it might be safer to surrender Miracle to animal control, to remove the danger from their lives. The thought had barely formed when she heard the softest of sounds, the click of Miracle's nails on the kitchen floor. The dog had managed to walk from her bed to the kitchen, still weak but determined. She came to Rose's side and rested her scarred muzzle on Rose's knee, looking up with eyes full of an intelligence that couldn't be denied. "You understand, don't you?" Rose whispered, gently stroking the dog's head. "You know I'm scared." Miracle's tail gave a single, gentle wag, and in that moment, Rose felt something shift inside her. This animal had endured unimaginable cruelty, yet still found the capacity to trust, to love. How could Rose even consider abandoning her now? "We'll protect you," she promised softly. "Somehow, we'll keep you and your puppies safe." The next few days passed in a state of careful vigilance. Daniel installed a better lock on their door and gave Rose a small canister of pepper spray, just in case. Jenny brought supplies so they wouldn't have to leave the apartment often, and Dr. Nathan made house calls to check on Miracle's progress. Tommy, seemingly oblivious to the adult's anxiety, focused entirely on Miracle's care. Her wounds were healing well, and her belly grew more pronounced as the puppies developed. She was able to walk short distances now, though she tired quickly. "She's going to be a great mom," Tommy told Rose as they watched Miracle carefully arranging the blankets in her bed with her muzzle. "She's already practicing making things nice for her babies." Rose smiled, pushing aside her worries for a moment, to appreciate the simple joy in Tommy's voice. "I think you're right, sweetheart. She's going to be wonderful." That night, Rose was awakened by Miracle's growling. "Si, sir." A low, threatening sound she had never heard from the dog before. She sat up, instantly alert, and found Miracle standing at the bedroom door, her hackles raised, staring intently at the front door of the apartment. "What is it, girl?" Rose whispered, fear clutching at her throat. Tommy woke up, rubbing his eyes. "Someone's out there," he said with certainty. "Miracle can smell them." Rose reached for her phone with trembling hands, dialing Officer Wilson's number. "There's someone outside our apartment," she whispered when he answered. "Our dog is growling at the door." "I'm 5 minutes away," Officer Wilson responded, his voice calm but urgent. "Stay quiet, keep the lights off, and stay away from the door and windows." Rose gathered Tommy into her arms, pulling him away from the bedroom door. Miracle remained standing guard, her growl continuous but quiet, as if she understood the need for stealth. "It's going to be okay," Rose whispered to Tommy, though her heart was hammering so hard she was sure it would be heard through the walls. Tommy nodded, his eyes wide but remarkably free of fear. "Miracle won't let them hurt us, and she says they haven't found us yet. They're just checking all the apartments." True to his word, Officer Wilson arrived quickly. Rose heard his authoritative voice in the hallway, followed by hurried footsteps moving away. Then a gentle knock at their door. "Mrs. Wilson, it's Officer Wilson. You're safe now." Rose checked through the peephole before unlocking the door. The officer stood alone in the hallway, his expression grave. "Two men were in your building, trying door handles on the third floor. They ran when they saw me, but I got a partial plate number from their vehicle." He looked past Rose to where Miracle stood protectively next to Tommy. "Your dog's instincts were spot on. If she hadn't alerted you..." The implications hung in the air. If Miracle hadn't warned them, the men might have broken in while they slept. "What do we do now?" Rose asked, her voice steadier than she felt. Officer Wilson's face was grim. "I don't think it's safe for you to stay here anymore. Crane's men know you're in this building, even if they haven't identified the exact apartment yet. They'll be back." "But where can we go?" The prospect of leaving their home, small as it was, filled Rose with dread. They had nowhere else, no one else. "I have a suggestion," Officer Wilson said. "My sister runs a small farm about 30 miles outside the city. It's isolated, secure, and she loves animals. You could stay there until we resolve this situation." The offer was unexpected, but seemed heaven-sent. Within hours, Rose had packed their essential belongings, and Officer Wilson drove them to his sister's farm before dawn. Martha Wilson was a no-nonsense woman in her 50s, who welcomed them with open arms and hot chocolate, showing no hesitation about housing a pregnant ex-bait dog and her human family. "Patrick told me what you've been through," she said, showing them to a cozy guest cottage on the property. "You'll be safe here. No one comes to this farm without me knowing about it." The relief of being away from immediate danger allowed Rose to breathe easier than she had in days. Tommy and Miracle took to farm life instantly, with Tommy delighting in the chickens, goats, and 2 elderly horses that Martha kept. Miracle seemed to gain strength more rapidly in the open air, following Tommy at a careful pace as he explored the safely fenced property. Their peace was shattered 3 days later when Officer Wilson arrived with troubling news. "Crane's men broke into your apartment last night," he told Rose while Tommy was outside with Martha feeding the chickens. "They tore the place apart looking for Miracle." Rose felt sick. How did they know which apartment? "My guess is they've been watching the building, noticed you hadn't been there for days, and took a chance." Officer Wilson's face was grave. "These people are persistent, Rose. And the fact that they're going to such lengths to find one dog..." "It's about the puppies," Rose said, understanding now. "They must be worth a lot of money." Officer Wilson nodded. "Which gives us an idea. Jenny and Dr. Nathan think we might be able to use Miracle to finally build a case against Crane. The puppies are evidence of his operation, especially with the brand that was found in her ear." "You want to use Miracle as bait?" Rose asked incredulously. "After everything she's been through?" "Not exactly. We want to set up a controlled situation where Crane reveals his connection to her. If we can prove he was running a dogfighting operation, we can shut him down for good, and Miracle and her puppies will be safe." The plan was risky, but the alternative, living in hiding, constantly looking over their shoulders, was worse. Rose agreed to think about it, though the thought of putting Miracle in any kind of danger, even controlled, made her physically ill. When she explained the situation to Tommy later, trying to simplify it for his 5-year-old understanding, his response surprised her. "Miracle says she wants to help catch the bad men," he said solemnly. "She doesn't want them to hurt any more dogs like they hurt her." "Tommy, honey, I know you feel like you can understand what Miracle is thinking, but this is a very serious decision, and..." "She's sure, Grammy." Tommy's small face was set with determination. "I told her it might be scary, but she says she's not afraid anymore. Not with us." The implicit trust in his voice, the certainty that they would protect Miracle, moved Rose deeply. She found herself nodding, though doubt still clouded her thoughts. "We'll talk more with Officer Wilson tomorrow." The next day brought more complications. Martha, returning from town with supplies, reported seeing a car matching the description of Crane's vehicle, driving slowly past the turnoff to her farm. "They couldn't have found us," Rose protested, but the fear in her voice betrayed her uncertainty. Officer Wilson was called immediately. "We need to move forward with the plan," he said after hearing Martha's report. "Crane is getting closer, and I don't want to risk him finding you before we're ready." The plan, as Officer Wilson outlined it, involved using controlled information to lead Crane to believe Miracle would be at a certain location for a veterinary appointment. Officers would be stationed throughout the area, waiting to catch him or his men in the act of attempting to take the dog. "Miracle herself will be perfectly safe," Officer Wilson assured them. She'll be with Dr. Nathan in a secure room with officers present. Crane's men won't get anywhere near her. Still, the thought of deliberately drawing Crane closer filled Rose with dread. That night, as Tommy slept soundly, exhausted from a day of helping Martha with farm chores, Rose sat beside Miracle's bed, gently stroking her head. "I don't know if Tommy is right about being able to understand you," she whispered. "But if he is, if you can understand me, I want you to know that I'm scared. I'm scared of these men, scared of what might happen, scared of losing you or, God forbid, something happening to Tommy." Her voice broke. "But I promise you this, I will not let anyone hurt you or your puppies ever again. Whatever it takes, we're going to keep you safe." Miracle lifted her head, her amber eyes reflecting the dim light. Slowly, deliberately, she licked Rose's hand once, then rested her head on Rose's lap with a deep sigh. The simple gesture of trust brought tears to Rose's eyes. The next morning dawned gray and drizzly, matching Rose's apprehensive mood. Officer Wilson arrived early with Dr. Nathan, who needed to examine Miracle before the operation could proceed. "Her condition has improved remarkably," Dr. Nathan announced after the examination. "The puppies are developing normally and the wounds are healing well. Physically, she's strong enough for what we're planning, though the stress isn't ideal." "Are you sure this is the only way?" Rose asked that Officer Wilson for what felt like the 100th time. "It's the safest way to end this for good," he confirmed. "The alternative is to keep running, keep hiding, never knowing when Crane might find you." The plan was set for the following day. Information about Miracle's veterinary appointment was leaked through channels that would reach Crane, suggesting the dog would be brought to a small satellite clinic where Dr. Nathan sometimes worked. In reality, officers would be stationed throughout the building and surrounding area, with Miracle safely secured in an inner room. As they prepared for bed that night, the tension in the cottage was palpable. Even Tommy seemed subdued, holding Miracle's head in his lap as he sat on the floor beside her bed.
"Grammy?" he asked suddenly. "What if something goes wrong tomorrow?"
The question hit Rose like a physical blow. She had been so focused on protecting Tommy from her own fears that she hadn't considered he might have fears of his own.
"The police officers know what they're doing, sweetheart," she said, crouching beside him. "And Dr. Nathan will be with Miracle the whole time."
Tommy nodded, but his eyes remained troubled. Miracle is worried about her puppies. They're moving around a lot tonight, more than usual. Rose felt a flutter of alarm. "Is she in pain? Should we call Dr. Nathan?" Tommy shook his head. "Not pain. She's just restless, like she knows something important is going to happen." Rose looked at the dog, who did indeed seem unusually alert, her eyes bright and focused despite the late hour. A strange premonition crept over Rose, a feeling that there was more to tomorrow's events than any of them had planned for. "Try to get some sleep," she told Tommy, helping him into bed. "Tomorrow will be a long day." But sleep proved elusive for all of them. Rose dozed fitfully, waking at every small sound. Tommy tossed and turned beside her, and Miracle, rather than sleeping in her bed, paced slowly between the bedroom and the front door, pausing occasionally to listen intently to sounds only she could hear. Shortly before dawn, Rose gave up on sleep entirely. She made herself a cup of tea and sat by the window, watching as the first pale light crept over Martha's farm. The rain had stopped, leaving behind a glistening, misty landscape that would normally have been beautiful. Today, it just seemed ominous. A soft whine drew her attention. Miracle stood in the doorway, her posture tense. "What is it, girl?" Rose asked, setting down her tea. Miracle whined again, more urgently, then turned and walked purposefully to the front door. When Rose didn't immediately follow, the dog returned and gently but firmly tugged at her robe with her teeth. "You want me to follow you?" Rose asked, a chill running down her spine. She glanced at Tommy, still finely sleeping, and made a quick decision. "Let me get my coat." The moment Rose opened the front door, Miracle slipped out, waiting just long enough for Rose to follow before setting off at a determined pace toward the barn. Despite her pregnancy and still healing injuries, the dog moved with surprising speed and purpose. Rose followed, confused and increasingly alarmed. The barn door was partially open, though Martha always closed it at night to keep the chickens safe from predators. As they approached, Rose heard a sound that made her blood run cold, a man's voice, low and threatening. "Find the dog, or Crane will have both our hides." Would Miracle's puppies survive what was about to happen? Comment below with your prediction for the birth scene.